The following podcast is brought to you exclusively by the Rad Rob Radio Network.
On this edition of Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr., we welcome the back-to-back PBA50 Player of the Year, John Janawicz, to the show. JJ's been on a couple times already, 2 or 3. I can't even remember. I think he may be the first-time, 4-time guest. I don't know. I'm sure Nico Pujar will tell us if he's been on more than 3 times. We can't wait to talk to JJ about his past season. Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. starts now.
This is PBA champion Kyle Troop.
Hey y'all, Jacob Ledrup here.
Hey guys, Chuck Ritchie here, formerly of Bowl TV.
Hey guys, this is Ryan Schaefer of track staff at Valley Bowling Center in Waverly, New York.
And you're listening to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr.
Yo, the boys from Straight Up 5, Rad Rob, Dr. Ocho, and of course JP Jr.
As you know, JP Jr. used to be introduced as the sexiest man in bowling and now the world. But he doesn't have the best hair in the world. I do. Sorry, bud, but you know the deal. Pick it out. Fear the fro, baby.
Welcome to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. A hard-hitting, in-depth, cutting-edge look into the world of bowling. This podcast will not only cover all things bowling, but will also give you a raw look into real-life issues. You'll get unfettered access into the mind of one of the most gifted bowlers of this or any other generation.
Strike, and they claim it. Similarly does it.
So without further ado, let's introduce you to the hosts of the show. Rad Rob Francois. Rad Rob Francois. Dr. Ocho. And the incomparable Johnny Petraglia Jr. Johnny Petraglia Jr.
Only in America is it possible to say, you know what, I don't like the way the country is going, and to do something about it. Take that risk. Take that leap of faith. Stay involved. Trust God and act obediently. Romans 12:2 verse. That God will use all things, for good for those who love him. It's bigger than you. I want you to remember that. It is bigger than you. It's bigger than me. You are here to make somebody else's life better, the pursuit of liberty and freedom. You know what gives me strength? The hundreds of thousands of you that say, Charlie, keep going.
1 Corinthians 5 and 15. So that's all pretty amazing evidence, not just intra-biblical evidence, but extra-biblical evidence that Jesus Christ was a real person. He lived a perfect life. He was crucified, died, and rose on the 3rd day, and he is Lord and God of all.
Hey guys, welcome back to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. I am your host, Rad Rob Francois. This is episode 170. We have a very special guest tonight, but I obviously would be remiss if we didn't give our condolences to the Kirk family. Obviously, he was murdered 2 weeks ago. We decided not to do the show that week because I was not in the right headspace, and I know JP wasn't either. And then I was on vacation last week, but I just couldn't let that opportunity go by to at least pay a little bit of tribute. So that being said, let's introduce my co-host who, there he is. I almost saw what his face looked like. I was so close. He didn't have a mask on. I switched over. One of these days, I'm going to see what Dr. Ocho looks like. I've known him for 6 to 8 years now, and it just... Any event, here is the man with the golden mask. He is the resident doctor of Straight Up 5. He is the house hack from Howell Lanes, Dr. Ocho. I was that close, dude. that close to seeing what you look like.
Doesn't matter.
Clearly
let's
doesn't matter.
get something straight here. Now, again, Charlie Kirk, I do appreciate him. Whoever believes in God, do whatever you got to do. No, I got nothing on here, or on here, because maybe we're wearing a different hoodle.
It's a different mask. It is. It's shinier than usual.
Oh my God! What the frig?
Hey, I told you not to say anything. I'm 2 minutes behind the game. Anyway, good to see you back here, Och. I like your shirt, by the way. Your sleeves are gone as usual. The guns are still looking good since 2018. So
you betcha. Well,
let's bring in the host with the most.
Really good. But hey,
still got the Twin Peaks.
Oh my God!
The host with the most. He is number 7 in your program, number 1 in your hearts, the sexiest man in the world.
I do.
We love him. Johnny Petraglia. Oh, that was a horrible throw. I just saw it. I'm 2 minutes behind. Johnny Petraglia Jr. What up, JPJ? Looking sexy as always.
Hey, at least your team is still in it, possibly for only one more, maybe another hour. But...
Half hour.
How'd that Soto thing go, by the way? How'd that trade work out for you guys this year?
Oh, he did just fine this year. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't have 3 different 8-game losing streaks and expect to make the playoffs.
That's fair. I haven't seen Mike Val in a couple of weeks. So I hope somebody needs to do a wellness check on him, make sure he's okay.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more upset about possibly losing Pete Alonso to free agency now.
That's true too. Who could go to Yankees?
Yeah, that's the big one that I'm like, oh boy. But I'm actually, a New Yorker at heart, so I'm still pulling for these Yankees right now. Let's go. So that's enough of these Red Sox. Let's get them out of here.
How are the Jets doing this year, John?
Oh, they're fabulous. It's really wonderful to have 2 completely incompetent sports teams that you root for.
Yeah.
At least, but the Jets, I expected. I expect the Jets to suck. I mean, I was born into the Rich Kotite era of New York Jets, so my life has pretty much sucked as far as being a Jets fan for basically its entirety.
Well, I mean, that was my life up until 2004, being a Red Sox fan. I mean, we all know about, Bucky Dent and,
but the difference is your team since then has been pretty fantastic.
True. Well, that's true.
My team just continues to be absolute garbage.
Right.
And then they go out and they give us all false hope that first week against the Steelers, where they played one of the most brilliant games I've ever seen the Jets play, and they still lose.
Pittsburgh had to kick a 60-yard or something like that, or a 58-yard or something.
Yeah.
But aside from that, man, it's great to be back. I really, really like the tribute to Charlie Kirk. Rest in peace. That's somebody that I spent a solid 30 minutes every single morning that I woke up listening to.
Sorry.
And it's disgusting that he's no longer with us, but his memory will always live on. So that was a real nice tribute you threw in there.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Apparently they got out of the inning, huh, Butch? Is that what happened?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Before we bring in JJ, I'm sorry. Let's see who's in the house here. I got all fired up here. We got Chuck Ritchie as always. We got DJ Ricky Smith. What's going on, brother? Needs a kidney. JJ looking buff in that thumbnail. I had to use that picture. It was it's a centerfold picture. I love it. Billy M's in the house. Mike Ruther Jr. What's going on? Got to watch it later. Okay. I saw Nico message me as well, said he's working tonight, so he'll catch up later. I do. No, that's me.
I do.
That's me. Clifton Don's in the house. What's going on? Mike Hanlon, Dave Picow, Alex Bermudez from Modesto, California. We got everybody here. Jules Stone's in the house. Dave Wolven. Good Lord. We got the whole crew tonight. JJ's Milkshakes brings everybody to the yards, apparently. Valerie, good evening, Valerie. All right, let's go. Let's get this on the road. He is PBA50 Rookie of the Year and back-to-back PBA50 Player of the Year. He is the Phenom Future Hall. JJ, John Janawicz. What's going on, JJ?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
How are you, JJ? Always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. You're one of our absolutely favorite people in the world. So after the season that you had, man, ridiculous. You cashed in every event. You had, what was it, 2 or 3 top 3 finishes? I forgot your stats this year. It was stupid.
It's wrong to forget the stats, of course. Fuck
Hey,
man.
you know what, Butch Ocho? I mean, you never do you ever do any homework?
Always. I got all the shit right here, mother crabber.
Anyways, I'm not gonna cuss tonight. That's
You already swore.
did I? I always forgot.
Go
Anyway,
ahead. Go ahead. Let's flint Rob's.
you had
stuff
you had a
here.
ridiculous year, JJ. Nobody can. Everybody we have on the show, I always ask, how can you stop JJ? How can you stop JJ? Troy doesn't know. Parker doesn't know. Nobody knows.
Barnesy doesn't know. Jeez,
Barnesy didn't know. Like, what are you doing, John, that nobody else is doing?
I wish I could say I knew too, but I really don't. Like I said, you just keep trying to get better. You know, as much as I keep continuing to say this, but I mean, like, you know, you just keep trying to figure things out faster more than anything. I think, you know, at this level, I mean, you know, everyone can strike a lot once they get lined up, but you know, I've told a few people, you know, it's you try not to be stuck in 180 and 190 purgatory for very long, you know, or fortunately don't even, you know, if you're hopefully don't even get to that point if possible. So, you know, you just keep trying to be a little smarter with equipment, be better with lane play. And, you know, that was one of the things I was fortunate this year to do. I mean, I cashed in every event, which is something that I hadn't done the last couple of years, you know? So, I mean, there was a lot of real good positives from this year. I mean, missed more single pins than I did the last 2 years combined, but yeah, that's something I definitely got to work on. But yeah, like I said, it's just it was a pretty good year, pretty solid year all the way around. You know, like anything, there's still always some room for improvement, but no, I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out as a whole, though.
JJ, kind of feeding off what Rob just said, if you really had to pinpoint one thing that makes you just a little bit different than everybody else, because you're out there with, this is not the senior tour from 1980. You're out there with the greats week in and week out. And to go out and have two absolutely amazing seasons as you have had back to back, the big thing that everybody always talks about, they'll always say, yes, well, JJ works for Kegel. JJ's brilliant. He knows lane patterns more than anybody. He can decipher this. He can do that, yada, yada, yada. That's all fine and dandy. There's a big difference between understanding and having knowledge when it comes to lane play, ball selection. But you have figured out a way to get your ball to go through the pins from zones on the lanes that the likes of Tom Hess, Brad Angelo, Chris Barnes, they can't get their ball to do the same thing. What if you really had to pinpoint it? Try and take us through your mentality when you're approaching a tournament. Are you dissecting pattern, topography? What's going through your brain from the start of a tournament? Let's go like all the way to say practice session, feeding into the tournament.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as far as practice session goes, I mean, I'll look at the pattern. There were actually a couple weeks I didn't look at the pattern, you know, but I mean, I'll look at the pattern just to see if there's, you know, if it's, you know, if it was modified a little bit, and, you know, I'll kind of look at the distance where the load structure is. You know, is it more toward 5? Is it more toward the ball track? Is it more toward 15? And, you know, see if the load structure kind of matches with the distance. If it does, then kind of where I want my ball, you know, toward the end of the oil pattern. And then I think once you kind of figure that out, you know, then you start throwing practice balls and you see, okay, does, you know, what you see on paper and what you know about the lane surface, does it match, you know, what you had envisioned in your mind to what you were going to see? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, you know, but once it does, you know, then to me, it's, I think you try to figure out, you know, where you need your ball at the end of the oil pattern. Does it, you know, going to be a little bit farther right or a little farther left than you envisioned? And then from there, you have to kind of figure out where, you know, how do you get there? Is it better to get there going straighter through the front, or is it better to get there using a little bit more angle to the front? And usually one way or the other will tell me more. You usually just look for whichever way is easier to hit the pocket. And I'll also try to get a good feel for front to back. You know, like how much is your ball slowing down more in the front part of the lane? Is it slowing more down in the back part of the lane? Is that pretty gradual, you know, front to back? Burn off energy, or is it lightly skidding and then kind of tail off, or does it feel like it kind of locks up a little bit in the front and then easy down the lane because, from there, once I kind of figure that out, that'll kind of give me an idea from a ball speed standpoint, which direction I need to go in. If it's back ends are really strong, the balls in the front really good, I'm probably going to need to use a little bit more ball speed. If the back ends are pretty tight, hooks a little bit more, probably going to need to use shinier balls and less ball speed. So, you kind of go through it in that aspect, and then, some of that from there is, you have your core bowling balls that, I like to think I spend a lot of time in the off season trying to figure out, okay, what balls are these in the park, what balls and what part of the lane are these balls good in? Are these balls better going straight or playing near 5? Are they better, straight or near 10? Are they better at, curve and transition from 15 to 7? Or are they a lot better for like on the cliff wet drive from, when you're trying to go from 25 to the 310? You kind of classify balls in those, and I spend a lot of time in the off season local tournaments trying to figure that stuff out. And then from there, you try to get your equipment in the right, set up your bags set up the right way based on you saw in practice. And then from there, it's just you kind of you have to kind of keep your hand on the abort button just in case if it doesn't work out. But that's probably maybe a quick minute of what I just kind of go through a little bit. I don't know, that really helps you a lot, but that's kind of a little bit of what I tend to go through.
I can't hear anything he's saying, but I'm just saying, the game is going good.
JJ, your audio is kind of jacked up. It keeps going in and out. Is there any way you can?
And what an inopportune time, because I was trying to read his lips also at the same time, and I'm gonna actually have to ask him to repeat it too.
It's going like back and forth, and like he's half in, half out. I'm like, I got half of it.
I think it's your signal, JJ. Unfortunately, if you want to bounce out and bounce back in, that might fix it.
Yeah, let's see if that works, JJ. And in the meantime, while he's doing that, I kind of got a little bit of what he was saying there as far as the load structure, it not necessarily matching what the lane pattern itself may dictate. But I really hope he gets back with audio, because everything
Let's try it again.
I really, really, really want to know.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, that seems a little better. Yeah, I was hearing a lot of static there when I started talking. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, if you could kind of rewind and run back what you said, it was very interesting until you broke up.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said.
Nuts.
As I tend to start out with, and kind of get an idea of, and also if for whatever reason, if I start, things are, start sounding bad, just let me know. But like I said, I'll start with the oil pattern, kind of get an idea from a distance standpoint, where it is, and then I look at the load structure. Like, is more of the shape near 5? Is it more near 10? Is it more near 15? And then I'll kind of look at, okay, does the distance kind of match where the load structure is? If it does, that kind of makes it pretty easy to me where you need your ball at the end of the oil pattern. Now, if it doesn't, then that's kind of where, all right, let's kind of use practice session to figure out where it is. And then okay, well, and no, you got me there?
Now we can hear you, but we can't see you.
You there?
Now we can hear you, but we can't see. Can
you hear me?
We can hear you.
Maybe I'm just in a bad spot here. So maybe try moving around here. Maybe it might be a little bit easier. But
okay. Are you still able to hear us?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but your picture's gone for whatever reason.
Huh. Wow. I don't understand that. So
either. It's one of them days. I had the same problem last night. So
okay. All right. Well, like I said, once I kind of figure out where I need the ball at the end of the oil pattern, then it's just kind of a matter of figuring out, all right, what's the better way to get to that spot? Do I need to go a little straighter, or do I need to use more angle to that spot? And because usually one or the other is going to be a little bit easier to hit the pocket. And that's really all I'm looking for is what's the easiest way to hit the pocket. And from there, once I kind of figure that out, then it's kind of a matter of fine tuning the balls. And I like to think that I spend enough time in the off season trying to figure out, okay, what ball, what zone of the lane is a certain ball good for. Better for going straight or near 5? Is it better, trying to go 15 to 8? Is it better on the cliff wet dry going from 25 to the 3-pin? What is this ball good for? And I like to think I have a pretty good idea of like how my balls are structured, for certain zones of the lane. And then from there, once you kind of figure out where the starting point is, then it's just a matter of, okay, you figure out over the course of a block, and over the course of a tournament, because, with the senior tour, we've got, some tournaments where they re-oil, you've got some tournaments where you got burn, you got double burn. So you have to kind of, visualize in your mind, okay, where is this going to go? How deep is this going to go? And what balls do I think are going to fit best in that particular zone of the lane for in that particular distance for that tournament? And then you just kind of structure the balls that way. And then, once you actually get into competition, it's just a matter of, you got to hit the abort button if things aren't working. But from there, you just have to kind of go off of what you see, and hopefully you have your equipment right. And maybe I need to drill a ball, on the truck to kind of fill a gap. But then you just kind of go out and execute from there.
Just hearing you talk about it is it's still like, for somebody like me, it's still kind of surreal, because I always grew up with the mentality of, especially when you're bowling in competition, there's going to be some zone that most people are in based off of that pattern. So like when I would go to a bowling center, I would say, okay, I'm following Jason Couch and I don't know, Peter Hernandez. They're on my next pair, right? And
Yep.
I would typically go over and I would be like, okay, they're around 14, 15 or so with the arrows. They're getting into about 8, 9. They're using, asymmetric dull solids. And this is probably going to dictate the zone that I should be in, because I'm bowling 210 and they're bowling 230.
Right.
But what seems to happen with you, JJ, is everything you just said. Obviously, it makes complete sense. You're trying to get the ball to go through the pins the right way, but it's not like you're doing it in the same way that the other guys are. Like when we see you bending it when the guys are playing, up 10 or the track area. We see you going up the lane when most of the guys are hooking it. So what is so special about you is you can decipher things that the best players in the world aren't seeing. And even if they are seeing it, they're still not doing it. Like I can't even use EJ as an example, because he's you on the regular tour. But because EJ is at least in the same vicinity as other players typically when you see him bowl. When you're out on the lanes, I watch you and I go, JJ's got the nut. He's out averaging everybody by 10 pins a game this week. What is he doing that is so different than everybody else? And you could talk about the load, you could talk about the oil, you could talk about the topography. Does it ever jump into your brain that, you know what, maybe I'm not doing what the pattern says I should be doing? I'm not kind of following the pace of everybody else around me. It's almost like you're at the beat of your own drum, which is what makes you so special to me. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to trying to figure out what is the golden goose that is John Janawicz.
Yeah. Well, thanks. But, you were talking about baseball earlier. I was, listening when I was, off camera. And one of the biggest things in baseball, they talk about is analytics, and I kind of like to look at this, patterns and bowling balls and the same thing kind of in that same way, in that, okay, if you know that you have this particular pattern at this distance and this lane surface, chances are you're probably going to need your ball to be at this part of the lane, and you're going to probably need to use more angle. And now is that always going to be the case? No, but you're playing the percentages more than anything else. It's like same thing with bowling balls. You know what I mean? Like, you take a ball that's got a 253 RG and a, and it's a, an 055 and is a strong, and is a strong ASIM at, 0.015 and it's got a pearl cover. Chances are, at least for me, it's going to probably be pretty good on longer patterns when they transition a little bit. Is that always true? No, but like I said, percentages in history tells me that's probably going to be the case. So I try to use like kind of some of that same kind of mentality of things I've seen in the past and understanding the numbers, understanding the patterns to try to kind of form my own analytics, I guess you could say, more than anything else. To go that, this might not work 100% of the time, but 80% it probably will. So I'm going to start there first. Or now they're starting to get cliff wet dry, what kind of balls do I need? Well, history shows me that it's not going to be, for my game, it's not going to be a pearl ball, and it's not going to be a strong ASIM on medium. It's going to be a symmetric. It's going to be a little bit higher RG, and the flare is going to need to be cut down quite a bit. So you start there, and then you kind of build off of, if it doesn't work, then you got to be willing to abort whenever it doesn't work. But I try to use that same kind of mentality a little bit, when it comes to lane play and choosing which bowling balls more than anything else, as when it comes to lining up and trying to keep up with transition.
When it comes to urethane, speaking of bowling balls,
yeah,
are you a fan of it? I don't see you throw it very often, although I have seen you throw it. When is it in your brain, you know what, I need this motion through the pins this week? Like,
I think for me, I mean, definitely where, if you need to start the ball to the right of 12 at the arrows, it's definitely going to probably, I'll consider it. Shorter patterns, probably about, in this day and age, I used it at the Players Championship on 45 feet, so kind of goes back to the whole, you have to kind of, think a little out of the box sometimes, but, kind of goes back to what I was saying before, when is this ball good? It's going to be better to the right of, to the right of 10. And like, that was one of the cases where it was, so, especially when we got into match play. So you have to kind of, be open to that. But, like I said, whenever I think the back part of the lane gets a little flat and wherever you might see a little bit of shape in the front part of the lane, whether that's shape due to structure in the oil pattern, whether that's shape due to topography, maybe an older surface where the front part of the lane is going to be depressed and you're going to have a little bit of a little bit of bounce kind of in the front panel, two panels of the lane, and or maybe both. So those are a couple situations where dealing with, like I said, an older surface and or shorter patterns and or where it looks like there's a distinct advantage to be able to go a little straighter to the right of 12. To me, that's where I tend to look at it more than anything. And then from there, it's just a matter of, if I have to manipulate it too much to make it work, then it's probably not the right ball. But then again, I think that holds true with not just urethanes, but with anything.
Interesting. Thank you for answering that for me. Go ahead,
we have a question from our audience, JJ, from Dave Wolven. He says, JJ, big fan. Clearly, the more you win, the more pressure there is to perform. How do you mentally prepare for competition? What do you do to calm your nerves and get into the right headspace?
That is a good question. I can't really say I've really put any more pressure on myself as the years go on. Like I said, maybe I just think a little simple when it comes to that stuff. But I try to keep the exact same preparation week after week. And just kind of like it's what I talked about earlier. Like, okay, what is the lane surface? How old is it? And then what's the pattern that's being put on top of it? And then once you figure that out, okay, where do I need the ball down the lane? How am I going to need to throw it straighter or use more angle to that point? And then, you kind of have to figure out a little bit too. One of the other things too is, what's the scoring pace going to be like? And if it's going to be a little bit higher, I'm probably going to need to be focusing on switching balls a little faster and, not trying to grind it out as much. If the score's a little bit lower, then let's just find the easy way to hit the pocket and, make spares and try to keep it in play. But as far as mentally goes, I mean, probably one of the bigger things I've gotten better at over the years is that you have to have enough confidence in yourself to know that you're going to figure this out. It might take more time than you'd like, but you just have to know that I'm going to figure this out. And I just have to keep, my head on straight because, I can't get too angry because, next thing you know, you start pissing away frames or games, because you're so angry that you can't strike or you're so angry about this pair or whatnot that you just have to continue to just keep grinding away at it, and, you just have to know in that self-confidence that you're going to figure it out. And I think that's where the more knowledge you have about the lane surface, your bowling balls, lane play, watching other people, the more that you know about your environment, to me, the easier the decision making makes. And then when the easier the decision making makes, then the confidence goes up. And then it's just a matter of, okay, now it's just a matter of executing more than anything else. And I think, I think that's probably one of the things that helps me more than anything else is that ability to, put myself in the right part of the lane quicker and stay there longer, because we all have bad days out there. And I definitely had some days where I just threw it absolutely atrocious, but if you get the right ball in your hand, you get in the right spot of the lane, get the ball, tune in the ball speed right, and the angles through the front, you can minimize the damage by having an off day. And that's probably maybe one of the areas where I might be a little bit better than average.
So I think Parker told us a story when he was on a few weeks ago. Something about I don't remember which tournament it was, but I think you threw like a 278 or 280 something, and then you just next game you switch balls. Does that ring a bell at all? And if not, like
I'm sure I've done that before. Oh yeah.
Okay. Why? It's pretty much like if you have the look that you already have, why would you change what's working?
To me, I talk a little bit about this in some of the seminars that I've given, and sometimes I'm not always right, but I compare bowling a lot to the NFL, where a lot of people like to compare bowling to golf, but I mean, and there's a lot of comparisons there, but one of the things when I would watch the NFL, they always talk about wide receivers and and route running. You've got to, basically it's all about timing. You have to be at a certain spot, whether it be 5-step drop, 7-step drop, but it's all about timing. And if you get there too early, you get there too late, it's not a completion or it could be an interception. Well, to me, it's kind of like the same thing with bowling. When you're going through the course of a block, that you're going to probably have to change balls at some point in time and or change something, whether it be ball speed, angle to the front, maybe all of them. And, there are just some times where I'll go off of instinct where you're like, okay, this look is good, but I've seen a couple things maybe in the 10th frame where, okay, you get it in and you 4-pin, you get a little right and then it's a light shaker, or maybe you get lucky and you roll a 2-pin, but there are some things like that just kind of tell you this ball is going to go at any time now. And, sometimes you just have to take that chance that, I don't want to get, I don't want 160 to happen next, because usually sometimes that's what's going to end up happening. So you try to be proactive on it. Have I gotten burned at times? Yeah, of course I've gotten burned at times, but, I like to think, to me that chance is worth taking, and if anything, I will learn from it. So that way, when I get into that situation next time and I see that same kind of ball shape, front to back, side to side ball motion, I'll know at least next time, hey, don't do that. I might need to do, I'm not sure what to do next, but, it won't be switch balls. Maybe it'll just be get farther left and soften your ball speed a little bit more with the same ball. But no, I've definitely taken those chances more than a few times, though, out there.
And that's probably the biggest piece of advice to all of our listeners. we see Anthony Simonson do it all the time. He'll bowl 260 and he'll change balls in the middle of a 260. But like JJ just said, you miss 1,000% of the chances you don't take. And all you're really doing at that point, especially when you have the skill, is you're expanding the opportunities to continue bowling well. You're not worried so much about bowling the 150 necessarily right now. You're avoiding bowling 150 down the road. And I think that was probably one of the coolest things to hear you say, JJ, and especially in today's game when you have all these different bowling balls and all this technology just at your beck and call all the time. But you said something earlier that I wanted to touch on before we started talking about the big scores and the transitions and changing bowling balls. I'll get back there eventually. I didn't.
Oh yeah, sure. We got time.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I actually had a personal question. You mentioned when it came to confidence in yourself, and you had mentioned scoring pace. So when you're at, do you know before the tournament starts, or have at least some kind of a guesstimate as to what you think the scoring pace is going to be? Like, are you getting up there in practice sessions saying, "Oh my God, score is going to be astronomical this week"? And if so, based off what factors contribute in your eyes is going to determine? How are you, Mike? Great to see you, brother. What factors are going to tell you, okay, you know what? I think it's going to take, the check number is going to take a 204 average this week as opposed to, say, a 218 average.
I mean, one of the big things I look for is pin carry in a particular bowling center. Because, when you're dealing with some of the best in the world, they're going to hit the pocket. It's just a matter of whether they strike. And, so I look at how easy it is to, strike more than anything. And I look at the pin speed off the kick. One of the things that, I'll look at pretty close is, pin carry. And then you kind of combine that with, how easy is it to hit the pocket? Because if it's pretty easy to hit the pocket and the pin carry is pretty good, well, then you're going to have a pretty good idea in your mind, all right, scores are going to be a little high. Now it's just a matter of, all right, I'm just gonna have to keep up with transition. And in that case, to me, bowling balls become a lot more important because now you need the, probably a fresher cover to get the ball through the pins. If you're not hitting the pocket, or if you're not striking, you probably need to find a ball that's, going to strike, because if they're a little easy, the whole field's going to be hitting the pocket pretty regularly, and somebody's going to fall into it, just fall into good pin carry by accident. So, it's up to me to figure out how I'm going to be able to keep up, but same thing too, with certain patterns after a while, you look at the history, you look at some of the ratios, from side to side. It kind of, for me, they kind of give me an idea of about kind of what to expect. And then, once you combine that with the lane surface that's being put on and then the pin carry, that can kind of give me a little bit of an idea going into practice session of what to expect. And then it's just a matter of actually, bowling practice session and seeing if I was right or not.
Justin DiBianco wants to know, as someone who's designed lane patterns, what's something most pros still overlook about how oil patterns break down during competition?
I think good questions. Thanks, Chad. Justin, good question, bro.
Things that pros overlook, probably. I think sometimes the volume can tell you a little bit in relation to how long it is. 32 mils isn't really a whole lot of oil in this day and age, especially on a, one of our formats where you've got double burn. But 32 mils in a 38-foot pattern condensed that short, that's a pretty good amount. So that you're going to see some pretty good transition front to back, and the ball's going to probably come off the end of the pattern a lot stronger that way. I think sometimes also some of the pros don't always look at the load structure of where is the shape in relation to the distance more than anything. I think that's probably one of the, seeing if the load structure, and what I'm talking about is is more of the shape between 8 and 12. Is it more between 5 and 8? or is it more a little bit flatter and a little bit more diagonal, to where there's not as much definition? I pay pretty close attention to that to kind of get an idea, maybe if there might be some spots where, there you might be able to see a little bit of extra side to side, room, and it might be in the front part of the lane, it might be down the lane, but I think I try to look at that pretty close in the load structure. I think sometimes those guys don't always see that, and they probably don't see it because I do this for a living. That's what I've been doing for the last 28 years now. So
right. Jim Rogers wants to know, how do you and Jess pick your restaurants? Your restaurant selection is almost as good as your lane play.
That's some weeks it's definitely a lot better. A lot of the restaurant selection for me is it's a combination of three different things. It's research online, what locals recommend, and dumb luck. That's pretty much the three. I've run into some great places just by walking around in the off time, and this place looks okay. Let me see what this is like. And then others, I'll look on Resi, Open Table, see what the star rating is, and that'll also maybe kind of confirm or deny whether this is a place I want to check out or not. And, whatever locals recommend too, because sometimes there are some places that are, are really good that aren't on, the major, reservation apps, like Resi, Talk, Open Table. So, I'll listen to that too. So it's a combination of those three is usually how I'll pick my restaurants.
Buddy Lee wants to know, when you're home here in Florida and are not working at Kegel, do you give lessons?
I actually don't, because my job at Kegel is tech support. So I'm actually helping with when the lane machines break down. I'm one of about 4 people that they'll call for that. If they're needing pattern help, getting their house pattern to score better, or designing a tournament pattern, I'm one of about 2 people that they'll call for that. So no, actually, technically, I don't work directly in the training center, but they've also, the training center's also asked me to come out a couple times when there have been, people that had some questions regarding, most of the time it's about patterns or things like that. And I'll go down and, and answer their questions for them though. So kind of indirectly, I kind of work a little bit for the training center, but not on a day-to-day basis though.
Gotcha. JP.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. JJ, I have a question as far as your pre-shot routine. Obviously, you do. I could turn on any video from any tournament I've ever watched you bowl, and you do the exact same thing. And I'm always a big preacher of pre-shot routine consistency. The guy who is stepping on, we talked about baseball, the guy who steps on the pitcher's mound, taps his glove 2 times, steps exact same way when he's rocking back.
Yep.
On the bowling lanes, I always talk about Parker Bone. His entire career, he does 2 swipes with the towel, puts the ball on his right hip. He's over the air. He wiggles his fingers 2 times, and he gets everybody's got a pre-shot routine. You can watch the show of Walter Ray from 1980 to now. He does the exact same thing. Your pre-shot routine is a little different simply because you're actually taking the element where they say, distribute the weight in both hands. Don't be too locked in on one side. Your ball is draped to your side, and then you'll bring it up to your starting position. Have you always done that? Why do you do that? What is your reasoning behind it?
No, that actually started probably about 3 years ago. And some of it had to do with, the biggest problem I've had is my arm swing gets behind my back a little too much. And as a result, then it bounces back out to the right. By the way, were you able to see me back on video at all or no?
No, we only have your audio, but
okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, I'm not really sure why that happened, because otherwise I definitely would have showed you. But
you're back now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I just touched something and there I am. So weird.
Awesome.
But one of the things that I feel like I have a problem with is, like I said, the swing goes behind my back. So, and one of the things that is the carry angle. When I talk about the carry angles, when you hold your hand by your side, it's how much does your forearm kind of stick out away from your body? Well, I feel like mine is a little bit farther than probably the average person. And I think that also contributes to, when I go to, push the ball away, it naturally tends to want to go a little away from my body. And holding it down is kind of one of the ways that I'll actually try to get it straightened out more than anything. And then that way I'm able to keep the inside of the elbow down and make sure that I kind of get that in the right position. What I'll also do is look at the forearm angle, make sure that that's parallel. We'll also make sure that when I push the ball away, that it has the best opportunity to swing straight down, as opposed to, kind of more at an angle. And like I said, that's kind of something I did 3 years ago, and kind of more in practice, just to try to get that feel right. And it just kind of stuck with me more than anything. And the reason why I do that too is I like to preset where I want my hand at the bottom of the swing. So, that kind of, I can already kind of feel it. And then when I preset it and you've got all the weight of the ball hanging by your side, well, now you're really opening your hand up, in spots to where you're going to ensure that you're going to clear. Where sometimes if you're holding it up here, the more the weight is on your thumb, and where now if you got it hanging by your side, for me, I've already kind of got my hand in the position that I want it, and I know I have confidence it's going to clear. And if I don't feel like it's going to clear, then I need to go back to the bevel, to get a bevel knife out and make sure it does clear, or move my tape around to where it is going to clear. And then from there, it's like I said, once I have that, preset, then it's just a matter of pick it up and go.
That's incredible. Thank you for answering that question.
Sorry, that was maybe a little complex, but I mean, that's in reality what I'm trying to do is, you're trying to ensure that, you're going to put yourself in the best opportunity to make the best shot. And that, if your hand is, if that inside of the forearm is parallel with the boards the same way every time, if that, if you get your preset, your release, to where you've got, the weight of the ball to where it's going to clear, where you get maybe your thumb a little more in, your index fingers maybe a little bit more, tucked in to where you want to get out of it to clear. If you do that every single time, your chances of your ball, being thrown the same way every time, to me, increases exponentially.
Thank you very, very much for that, JJ. I've actually been curious about it, and I totally understand. It's so intricate, it's so detailed. And you legit do it the exact same way every single time. And it's kind of just goes to show, the value of having that mentality along with doing the same thing every single time to get yourself in the exact spot that you need to be to execute a perfect shot. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you ever get flustered or mad when you're bowling? Or
Oh yeah.
It's very, very hard from the outsider's perspective to actually see it. How do you cope with it? I try and preach to everybody all the time the importance of the mental game when it comes to bowling, not getting down on yourself. You can very easily turn a 180 into a 140 if you're not in the right headspace.
Oh, by far. I mean, I think it's human nature to get angry, but I guess the one thing I've learned over the years is that, if you get all upset and mad, did it solve the problem? No. Did it, did you make a better shot as a result of it? No. Do you still have 70 in the fifth? Yes. What do I need to do to fix this problem? And when you start getting too much anger and emotion, and if panic starts to set in, but panic never fixed anything. So to me, you just have to, you have to let that stuff go and accept the fact that, this is going to be part of the game at some point in time, but all right, let's continue to go through, let's keep your head on straight and, just continue to try to, go through the logic of, how do we solve this problem? And one of the best things I remembered, we talk about, the NFL and the comparison to bowling. You know, you guys are probably old enough. You remember Bill Romanowski used to play for the Raiders and the Broncos. Well, many years ago, there was this was before I think cell phone cameras. Well, he spit in the face of J.J. Stokes in one of the games when he was playing. I think when he was playing for the Raiders, and he got I think like about a 3 or 4 game suspension for that. And I remember they interviewed him on ESPN. They asked him, why did you do it? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, when emotion is high, logic is low. And, I kind of remember that and tried to apply that to bowling because, when emotion is high, logic is low. And the lower logic is, the less you're going to be able to figure out what's going on. And the more frames you're going to be, or games you're going to be wasting. And I'm like, you just have to realize, you got to let that stuff go. And all right, how do we go back and go, how do we solve the problem? And, when I look back at a lot of the tournaments that I bowled the best at, I didn't let those things bother me. So, it's almost kind of a mental self-check going, all right, you're starting to get a little pissed off here. This isn't going to end well if you stay in this headspace. Let's get back and figure out, all right, do I need to switch balls? Was that a bad shot? Analyze what you got to do, and let's make a better shot the next frame.
PD wants you need to send us some of your dessert locations for next season.
I can definitely do that. So I'm always looking for new places.
Apparently people love following your eats because Alex Bermudez also wants to know what's some of the best eats you've had recently.
Recently, place in Los Angeles. I was just in LA on vacation the weekend before, and one of the best desserts I've had in a while was at a place called Horses, and it's kind of out near like West Hollywood. And they had this dark chocolate mousse, which was freaking unbelievable. I mean, that was one of the best desserts I've had in a long time. So that was probably one place. And also, like whenever I go out west to LA, you've got there's a chain of bakeries out there called Susie Cakes. And they've opened a couple other spots. There's one in Nashville. There's one in Dallas. But seasonally, they have whoopie pies. And they're freaking unbelievable with the chocolate cookies and the buttercream filling. But they also have what's known as Susie's Nutties, and they're basically kind of the same way. It's like whipped peanut butter with 2 peanut butter cookies on both sides. And, just kind of like a sandwich. Awesome. So
okay, you had me at peanut butter.
Yeah, love peanut butter. So
I'll never turn down a dessert, obviously. But I did find your stats because. We have to mention it because, I mean, what you did this year, JJ, was ridiculous. Obviously, you led all players with 29,000 points, 54,900 in earnings, 5 top 3 finishes, 7 top 5 finishes. As we mentioned earlier, you cashed in all 13 title events and only missed consecutive championship rounds once. Obviously, you also won your second TOC. You won the PBA50 Monticelli Championship this year. It's pretty remarkable what you've done. 9 titles. You obviously Rookie of the Year, back-to-back Player of the Year awards. You're only 52. You have 9 titles in 5 majors. Is it surreal to you what you've been able to do the last 3 years?
It kind of is, honestly. I mean, I've said this before. You have to have the confidence that you can do things like that. Now, whether you do or not that's a whole other conversation, But you have to know when you're going against guys like Parker, Hess, Barnes, Brad Angelo. I mean, you have to know that you can compete with them, and you have to know that you can win deep down inside. But if the results say otherwise, well, then okay, that just means all right. I've got some things I got to work on. How do I get better? Whether it be making better shots, getting better at lane play, seeing transition better, getting better at spares, whatever it may be. Then from there, it's just a matter of going back to the lab and figuring out, okay, what is it? A physical problem? Is it a equipment issue, a knowledge issue, or maybe some combination of both? But and that's what I'm always kind of monitoring all the time, every year, year after year. Like, how can I get a little bit better? What can I clean up, and where can I get a little bit smarter? Because the one thing, especially on this tour, is we're all fighting father time. So we all kind of know regression is going to happen to some degree. So I guess that's why I'm probably a little bit more on top, try to be a little bit more on top of that than more so than others, maybe, and I try to be very conscientious about that because, father time is still batting 1,000. And so I'm trying to do as much as I can to try to, stay ahead of the game.
JJ, when you made the decision to go out on the senior tour, did you, or do you still, did you go out with any set expectations in your mind? Or did you just say, you know what, I want to go out and do this and let's see how it goes, and apply everything you've been talking about throughout the course of this show and past shows you've been on with us? But did you expect to have, I'm assuming that you expected to have some level of success. Did you expect to be the most dominant force on the entire tour back-to-back years?
No, I didn't have that expectation. I mean, I felt like I wasn't going to lose money out there, but how much, success you're going to have. I mean, since I never bowled tour before, and these guys have been bowling for a living their whole life. I mean, you have to kind of realize, okay, there's going to be a learning curve out here to some degree, whether it's, the trend or, just being on the road all the time, whatever it may be. I knew there was going to be some, a degree of a learning curve. And, but no, I mean, at the same time, I mean, I've been bowling my whole life too. I've been bowling, granted, a lot more of it's like on weekends and in smaller, stints. I wasn't doing this for a living, but, I kind of thought to myself, okay, let's go ahead and apply what I've learned from all these years between lane maintenance, being a bowler, Team USA, and everything. And, let's see where I'm at and go from there. And fortunately, got off to a really good start. Won my first tournament, the Senior Masters, and then just kind of built from there. Okay, what else can I get better at? And I think like I said, short of not winning 5 titles this year. I mean, I think I made almost as many shows, if I remember right. I think you said I made 7 shows. I think I made 8. I think last year, but we also had 3 more tournaments last year than we did this year. So, I mean, kind of on the same pace. So, I mean, I like to think I have been improving, for each year, like I said, and just, the caching part, has gotten better. So just trying to hope to continue to build on that. And, I think the biggest thing I'm going to be working on is trying to get my body in better shape. So that way I can, continue to try to hold off father time as much as I can. But that's definitely what I'm going to be doing a lot more in the off season, because I've definitely felt like there were a few times where I got a little bit more tired, and that's one of the things I'm going to work on before as long as I can bowl next year. That's what I'm going to be working on.
Yeah, because obviously we've seen Ryan Schaefer have the knee issues. Troy Lint obviously has been ongoing knee issues, and Father Time does get us all. And congrats to the Yankees, by the way, Ocho. You're welcome. That's a freebie. How are you doing physically, John?
Not bad. I mean, I've definitely started, pushing more weight here. I've kind of gone back to a little bit heavier weights, and where before I was kind of doing like more total body workouts, but not really a lot of weight. I'm trying to do a little bit more weight, and also trying to get had a little bit of in the last year and a half, me too much when I bowl, but I actually had an MRI done about a month ago on it, and fortunately there was no damage, but there was some fluid in my hip area there. So I've actually been to physical therapy, trying to work on some exercises to get myself, see if I can overcome some of the stiffness more than anything that's in my right hip. But yeah, that had been kind of bothering me a little bit in the last year.
It's in your right hip, bro? Because that's
right
not even
hip.
like really I see it. Don't get me wrong. I see as you push off, but like That's why I guess that's why it's still a non-issue, though, right? Like you're not really trying to.
Yeah, like I said, it's not. It hasn't really caused me any real pain, but mostly it just has to do with like, if I'm going to like lift my left leg up to go tie my shoe, I don't have any problems with it. If I go lift my right leg up,
you can't do it.
Much tighter in the groin area, and in the upper part of the hip. So I've been trying to find ways to loosen that up and maybe build some strength around, some of the areas around there, so it takes some of the pressure off of that.
It's funny you say that because I've done so much stuff for my left hip that my right hip is starting to fall. But then my right hip, I started to do more stuff than my left hip is starting to fall. So I totally understand the hip issue.
Any tips for that, Ouch?
He's on. He's got it. Listen. I have my.
I mean, you're a doctor. I was just asking.
No, he's going to physical therapy, and that's actually what he should do for this issue.
Yep. And like I said, and so far it's been kind of helping a little bit slowly, but if anything, I figure, if I can get it stronger and if anything, prevent it from getting worse, that's really the goal here more than anything else, just to, be proactive so I can at least maintain this level. Because like I said, it really doesn't bother me when I bowl or like walking around. But, there were a couple times last year near the end of the season where it did get a little sore, so I was like, I got to be better at this, and fortunately,
when it gets sore is the problem too. That's the issue. That's when you really have the issue, because then you're starting to do your things a little entail from what you normally do. So,
yep. And by far, we're definitely, from a bowling standpoint, we're bowling every day, and so it's unlike at home where okay, I'll practice on Wednesday and take a couple days off, bowl this weekend, then take another couple days off. Where fortunately, I've been bowling, max games for a lot of these events, at least bowling to the last day. So just a lot more strain on the body. So
does traveling, kind of hurt that as well? Driving around all the time, or does that not play a factor?
The driving actually is fine. Like sitting is okay, but like I said, it's mostly just when I have to start lifting that right leg and get it closer to my upper body. That's where it starts to get kind of tight. It's almost like, where they said that had some fluid. It's almost like that's where the fluid kind of starts putting pressure. And, that's really where it bothers me more than anything else. But otherwise, I mean, like in everyday life and whatnot, it's really not really much of an issue at all, though.
Well, that's good. I mean, you always have kept, yourself in great shape anyway. So you've been ahead of the curve of that. We've seen a lot of that with the younger guys on the national tour. We've seen Kyle Troop decide he wanted to get in better shape, and he's in phenomenal shape now. And Butters said the same thing. And you're looking at a lot of the bowlers now are realizing how important, their health is, because bowlers are athletes. And it's funny because Heather Sterner, I had her on a different show, and that's her big thing. I mean, she's huge into nutrition and training, and she gets people custom workouts and all that, because bowlers really are athletes.
Oh yeah, and she's actually one of the ones that helped me with my workouts over the last 5-10 years as well too. That's
awesome. Good. She's phenomenal. She's absolutely phenomenal. She'll help anybody. She's very, very knowledgeable when it comes to that. But so what are your expectations going forward? I mean, it's kind of who knows what's going to happen, but say that you get the hip thing worked out, it doesn't bother you, next year, and you're in great health. Do you have any reason to expect not to have the same results? I mean, or you just kind of play it week to week?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm one of those people that I try not to look too far ahead, into the future, because with life, you just never know, especially as we're getting older, from a health standpoint, you never know what's really going to happen, but assuming that, I can still bowl the tour, and, come, April or May, whenever we, start back up, that I'm healthy, I like to think I've got a pretty good chance to try to make a three-peat out of this. But, like anything, things change, as equipment, new equipment starts coming out, sometimes it's good for you and sometimes it's not, so, you have to, to me, that's kind of something I constantly, kind of fight all the time, is like, do I just continue using some of the older balls, or, do I try to find ways to make these newer balls work? Because, sometimes there are guys that can make some balls work way better than I can, and they make them look really good. Maybe do I need to change layouts? Do I need to change surfaces? Or, maybe do I need to find ways technique wise to make these balls work? Is there more of an advantage doing it that way? So that's kind of the stuff I spend a lot of the off season doing, checking out some of the new balls and testing them locally to try to figure out, okay, when is this going to come into play? Is this going to come into play when they're easy, when they're hard? Like, will this be the, since, I'm throwing a lot of old discontinued bowling balls, like, will this be the replacement for the Wild Streak? Will this be the replacement for the DNA Coil? Will this be, the replacement for, the Envy Tour or whatever it may be, So, I'm always kind of just playing around with that kind of stuff. And then, you also kind of, like I mentioned before, maybe I might need to sharpen a few physical tools that I haven't used in a while, maybe to make some of these newer balls work, So that's what I spend a lot of my off season kind of doing more than anything else, bowling local tournaments and, practicing in the training center.
JJ, if you touched on this while I was gone, which by the way, I'm sorry for the few minutes I was, as far as surface adjustments, let's say you have 4 brand new balls that you're going to drill. Yep. Are you very quick to manipulate the cover to alter the surface, or do you typically try and keep the balls at their own face value, is it just dependent?
I tend to, the balls that I know that are going to be a lot stronger, like gems and, like those kind of bowling balls, I tend to want to bring the surfaces up on those right away. The shiny bowling ball, the balls that come out of the box shiny, I want to throw those the way they are first, because, a lot of times with the factory finishes, you can't always duplicate that. And if a ball is good right out of the box, I want to try to, try to get as many 250 games out of that ball as I possibly can before it starts to change, but the bigger, stronger balls, especially the ones that come out of the box at, maybe like 1,000 grit or 2,000, where I kind of know that because my ball reads the front a lot as it is, I'm not going to throw this ball effectively, probably in box finish in most cases. I'll bring those surfaces up. And also, when I can bring those surfaces up and get them all the same, like just say at 4,000, it makes it a lot easier for me to figure out, okay, well, if the surfaces are all the same, and since I only use basically a couple main layouts, if the surfaces are the same and the layouts are the same, well, now I pretty much know the differences between the balls. Okay, this one is 3 more or 4 more on medium. I'll know that this one is definitely a stronger motion down the lane, even though I can keep my feet in about the same spot. And when I know that, then it just makes it a lot easier when I get to a tour stop and, okay, this absolute power, for example, is, not quite right. Maybe I just need to tweak the drilling a little bit. Or, okay, now I just need something that's maybe a couple boards stronger down the lane. Oh, yeah, I remember from, testing it that, it's going to be this Equinox or, whatnot. So, that's why I try to eliminate some of those variables as much as I can when it comes to the surface and the drillings, just so that way I can have a really good idea of the differences between, the footprint of the cover and, how strong is the engine more than anything.
It's so funny that you say that, because I'm sitting here saying to myself, I don't, unless I'm bowling tournaments, I'm talking specifically for league now. When I drill bowling balls, then I'm just going out to bowling your basic, house shot, something standard, simple, easy to get to the hole. It's funny. I'll drill a ball. It usually happens 2 or 3 times a year where I'll drill it and I'll try and throw it at box 5, 6, 10 games sometimes. And I'll turn around and go, this is the biggest POS I've ever had in my life. Actual case in point, the most recent one is the Brunswick Combat. Okay. I tried to love that ball so desperately. And then I see Parker throwing it. And I go up to him like, were you really throwing that Combat? Please tell me you don't like that ball. Please tell me. He goes, JP, to be honest with you, I smacked it with 1,000 and it worked very, very, very well at the TSC. Yep. So I'm like, okay, let me try now, because I'm ready to turn this into a boat anchor, especially now in my new job. Let's go. and I smacked it with 1,000, and all of a sudden it still had the length, and now the ball is predictable. And I did the same thing with the old DV8 Endless Nightmare about a decade ago. I hated it out of box, and it's weird. The balls that I don't like out of box, the second I touch them, they become some of my favorites ever. And then there's other bowling balls where, okay, I like the Pulse. I've been throwing the Pulse a lot. Out of box, even for me, it was just a little too chuggy. It was a little too heavy rolling. I took it up a little bit, took it up a little bit more. Then I did something I haven't done in years. I put polish on top of the 4,000. And like smack, and it got better and better and better and better. It happens to me once in a while, obviously not to the degree because I'm not out there doing it full time the way that you or any professional is for that matter. But I found it. I really, really wanted your perspective on that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, like like when I'm trying to figure out bowling balls, I mean, like like say for example, I got 2 bowling balls. I got an Ion Max with a 45 by 5 by 45, and then and that's at 1,000 grit, and then I've got a gem that's 70 by 4.5 by 20, and that's got polish in it. Well, the gem is cleaner and a little bit longer. Is it cleaner and longer because of the drilling? Is it cleaner and longer because of the surface? Is it cleaner and longer because of the the DNA of the cover? Well, if they're all different, I mean, how do you really know? I can't figure it out. So that's why I try to, if anything, try to, keep the layouts and the surfaces the same, so it's easier for me to distinguish between the two more than anything. And kind of like you're saying too. I mean, like there are some balls which definitely roll a little bit better with surface for me. Virtual Energy Blackout was one of those balls. I mean, like with the factory polish, it was terrible, but you hit it with like 2,000 and use it on long, and it's all of a sudden it's an amazing bowling ball. So but there aren't too many balls that I hit with surface that I throw very often anyway. I think a lot of that's because of my ball roll, but yeah, like I said, I'm kind of with you on that stuff. I mean, I always had kind of a simple thing when it came to drilling bowling balls. I got my pin down layout and then my pin up layout. If the pin down layout doesn't roll good, I'll drill the pin up. If the pin up doesn't roll good, well, I don't drill another one. There's too many other choices out there.
I had 2 things for you. Number one, because you're talking about layouts, do you venture out to a lot of different layouts, or do you tend to stick with, like you just said, I got my pin up, my pin down layout? I mean, are you all over the map as far as layout, or is it you stick to, I guess what works?
I tend to stick with what I know works. Usually I got my one basic pin down layout and the one basic pin up layout. And the only other balls that are different from that are mostly like the trick balls, the balls for the double burn, or maybe the balls for the fresh that, I just kind of stumbled on as a science experiment one day and it happened to roll really good. Okay, I'll remember that. And I might play around. I actually played around more this year than anything else with changing layouts, mostly just when I was on the truck trying to fill gaps more than anything else. Okay, I like this ball, but it's just a little early. Let me drill, one with a little weaker pin, and maybe, a little bigger drill angle and a little smaller valve angle to try to create a little different shape. I played around with that a little bit more this year. Not sure maybe if that had a lot to do with my success, but yeah, I'll usually just play around with layouts more, just when I'm trying to fine tune out there drilling bowling balls. But otherwise, yeah, I stick with basically 2 layouts and then just try to put the right cover and the right core, to match them.
So now for all the listeners, this is the 4th, one of the best bowlers in the world, the 4th one we've had on this show where they stick basically to a simple guideline. Obviously, you talked about venturing out for here and there, but for everybody that's always so dependent on, oh, I need this layout, I need this, you get one pin up and pin down that rolls what you like. I don't use my thumb. My go-to layout on virtually every ball is 70 by 3 by 30, or even 2.5 by 30. I like to invert the mass and the CG towards my palm for that little bit of extra length, and it's not too angular for what I like to do. Other than that, I've got one other layout. It's somewhere where the pin is in the middle of the bridge, but I don't like to venture out too far from the norm because it kind of sets the base. Earlier, JJ, we saw your doubles partner, Mr. Rudolph Kazamakis, in the chat. I wanted to say, Rudy, I'll grab it before the show's over, but I happened to go practicing with Dad the other day, and I found a vintage, perfect condition sledgehammer on the rack. So,
nice.
Now that it's under the umbrella, I'm certainly going to be throwing a Rudy Rev sledgehammer here in the near future.
Yeah, he was asking about some of those old relics. The last time I saw him bowled together in the doubles there in Illinois. So yeah, hopefully he found a couple of them.
I hope so too. What a legend! And
Henry
speaking of legends, real quick, JJ, I don't know if you know this, but every single night that I go to bed, I turn on bowling just for background noise. And I was laying here the other night. I rolled away from my television, and I had a World Team Challenge on. And lo and behold, who's rocking the solid black shirt with a little bit longer hair? I think you were throwing I think it was a Danger Zone to give you a gauge on.
Okay.
Sometime around 94, 95.
Yeah, I was working the master mullet at that stage. Yeah.
It was awesome, dude. And
yeah, was I wearing the Gladiator too? I might have been the only person ever made TV wearing a Gladiator other than Pete Couture. So
it's funny though, because earlier you had mentioned the starting position and the direction of your elbow and the target and all that. And on that show, you weren't doing it. And now that I'm thinking about it, I actually have to go back and watch it because you said one of the tendencies was your swing went a little bit more behind your back.
Yep.
And now that I think about it, it's so minuscule. I mean, you still threw it awesome, but now that I'm thinking about it and I'm relating it to what you do now, I'm like, holy shit. Like that's to me, that's what separates the best from the good players is the ability to be able to manipulate something so minuscule. And it's just a product. It's a product of why you are the way that you are. So I wanted to point that out too. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Sorry,
I mean, just at that level, at the level that we compete at, I mean, it really does come down to just the small things that really make the difference, because I mean, whatever can get you, another 20 or 30 pins a block, whatever can, get you another one more hit every other game. I mean, in these longer formats, that's hundreds of pins, and, to me, that's where those details matter, and any little advantage that you can get and be a little bit smarter, get lined up quicker, see transition faster, I mean, in any window that you can get, watching other people, to try to figure out what's going to come next, and who's bowling well, whatever you can learn to see it quicker. I mean, against guys like, like Angelo and Hess and Parker, I mean, any advantage you can get, I mean, that's to me, I need that. I have to have it because those guys they're truly great.
Final question here from our chat, JJ. Henry Thief wants to know what is a physical tool that you mentioned using them earlier that you experiment with? Your art side, grip pressure position. How do you use your pinky finger or ring finger? What is the little minute details that you try to experiment with?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to I tuck my pinky finger, but if I'm trying to get more up the back of the ball, I'll untuck it because it allows me to be able to get the ball to roll into a different part of my hand where it makes it easier for me to get up the back of the ball. So if I feel like I need to trap it and make it go more forward, I'll untuck the pinky and then from there, grip pressure is another one. Not putting your fingers in halfway as opposed to putting it all the way to the first joint. You'll get the ball to float through the front a little bit easier. That way. Whether I put my thumb in first or my fingers in first will change just slightly ball shape, and sometimes that's all you need to carry, or at least maybe get one hit in the ninth frame, and buy yourself a little bit more time before okay, I need a definite technique change or a ball change.
Wow, that is actually detailed. That the little minute things that a lot of people don't think of. I always tuck my ring finger naturally just because it just felt weird to keep it straight out. I never knew that it actually helped you get, a different look or different shape or rolling the ball. That's just something I always did. But, even like you said, putting your thumb in first, it'll change your entire grip. That's not something I ever thought of. I always put my fingers in first and then my thumb just naturally.
You know what?
But knowing those little things, it's what John?
That's not. I feel the same way. I mean, like,
Yeah.
when I used to watch Dave Houston put his thumb in first, it confused the shit out of me. And then
Right.
lo and behold, then you got Tommy Jones, who not only puts his thumb in first, but his fingers are dead east before he turns them to the fingers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's rare. So it's not crazy for you to say, you're a traditionalist that puts his fingers in first. I just want to throw that out there. Good.
Okay, yeah, but I didn't know that it made that much of a difference. And that are, like John said, that are the little things that can help you gain, 10 pins, 20 pins, 30 pins, and they all add up. It's just, thank you for JJ for mentioning that, because that's just, you're so cerebral. And I think that's another reason why I think you're a step ahead of everybody else is you're so smart and you're just so analytical and you're a bowling genius. Let's just,
thanks. But I mean, it's just one of those things where, you experiment enough through time. And one of the hardest things is to find out what works for you within, the framework of your game and what you physically can and can't do. And, that just takes years to figure that stuff out, what you're good at more than anything else, the pecking order of, do I throw it hard? Do I change grip pressure? Do I spin it more? Do I loft it more? What do I do? What are my best skill sets? And then, matching the equipment with it, and then, ball speeds and things like that. How far can I go? And then, it's just trying a matter of putting all that stuff together. And, that takes a while. And especially, when you're bowling against some of the best in the world, and, you're kind of deciding between, a ball change, or, maybe I need to find some way to strike, whether I need to, put my thumb in first or something like that. I mean, that's just decision making that, it just takes years to kind of figure out, what the best plan of action is in that particular moment. And, there's still a lot of guesswork involved, but, I do know that, sometimes, switching balls at times, when they're hard, switching balls can put you into a completely different zone of the lane that you don't want your ball reading in, and so sometimes, especially when scoring pace is low, you just need to manipulate your hand a little bit more and grip pressure a little bit more, just to kind of keep that ball in the slot. And things like that are really especially like important for me, like when we're bowling the US Open, because that's probably one of the hardest tournaments that we have every year, on senior tour, so, but the other ones are definitely tend to be a little on the softer side, but that one's a little harder. So I mean, that one I tend to, especially I know it's it for that right way.
I wanted to mention this too. Kind of just like to add and snowball a little bit. It's the other thing about it is I have my dear friend and also my boss, Nick. We were talking about this today at work because I'm on one of my stretches again at Majestic Lanes where I've bowled 4 honor scores in the last 2 weeks. And he asked me today, he goes, is it just like normal when you step up in the 10th frame right now, or do you still get nervous? I said, Nick, I get nervous every single time, whether it's league, whether it's a practice game, whether it's a tournament. I still feel the same nerves every single time I step up in the 10th frame. The difference is after being there enough times and knowing your own tendencies, you kind of just learn how to cope with it. You learn what not to do. My dad bowled 298 on television in 1978. In 1994, when he bowled his 300, and he actually said, I'll never, ever bowl 298 on TV ever again. And if I do, I'm certainly not going to go through the nose when I do it. Nothing really changes other than the fact that you've been there enough and you've beaten the horse enough that you know your body's natural tendencies. So I think it's a good lesson for everybody to kind of listen to and try and absorb. I mean, remember, a clean game with 2 doubles is 215. You take away 2 of those spares, now you're bowling 190, 180 sometimes. And just even having that mentality, whereas like, approach the spare the same way you're approaching the strike shot. It's just as important, if not more. Or when you're in the 10th frame and you know your natural tendency is, oh my God, I'm in a pressure situation, I'm going to yank it, I'm going to thumb it down. it's always going to be there. But if you're aware of it and you know how to deal with it and fix it, it always makes, getting better easier, I guess, so to speak. And like you said earlier, with more emotion, there's less logic. So if you can be logical in that moment and understand what's happening around you, Rudyard Kipling, the poem If you can keep your head about you, when all about you, they're all losing theirs. It's one of the elixirs, and you have it, JJ. You have it on a level that I've personally never seen before. And it's truly, and I know I'm rambling now, but it's truly an honor to watch. And listening to you, I actually feel like a smarter person just listening to you.
Absolutely.
Like I remember, a while back, and I don't know if he still does or not, but I thought Pete Weber said
Hold
that
on,
like
on the there you are.
You got me?
There you are.
Okay. Yeah,
we got you.
I remember, I think it was Pete Weber said years ago that like on the 12th ball for 300, he would always move 2 left. And I think that was like that kind of goes to like what you talked about is a tendency that he knows. And, at this level, I think that's where the pre-shot routine comes into play. Because, I mean, I think everybody gets nervous to some degree, when it comes to you need to throw that strike or a double in the 10th to, to win the tournament. But, at this level, it's really just about emotion management. Some are better at it than others. And, pre-shot routine comes into play, breathing properly comes into play. I remember, and that's, same thing, just getting water, in your body. A lot of bad shots and breathing, it just comes from, your body's just struggling for oxygen, a lot of times, and that's where some bad shots come in. So, you just try to put yourself in the best position to, make the best shot. And, you don't always do it, but, if you, listen to your body, the breathing part, the pre-shot routine. If you do all those, and like for me, the whole thing with the setting up properly, making sure your hands in the right position, and not, if you do all that, chances are you're going to put yourself in the best position to make the best shot. And that's, at this level, that's all you can ask for.
Absolutely.
Final question for me, JJ. There's so many great bowlers out there on the PBA50 tour. You mentioned several of them. Is there anybody that is on the cusp? Let's say Tom Doherty, first year. Is there anybody that you are kind of worried about on tour? Anybody that maybe has your number? Who are you looking at when you go out there on the lanes?
Tom Hess is tough every single year. He's when he's got his little thing going, man, he's really hard to beat. I don't really say I worry about anybody out there. Doherty's obviously a hell of a bowler, and I think like anything else, next year he'll probably learn a few things, just like I did after my first year. It wouldn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me that he won the senior masters, and he bowled well overall. I know he probably was expecting a better year by his standards, but it's not going to surprise me if he bowls really good next year. But I just know maybe it's just because of recent memory or whatnot, but it seemed like Hess beat me up a lot more this year than, the last couple of years. Seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time from him. I know I watched him have the front 11 at me twice, in a couple different situations, but, like I said, no, I can't really say there's anybody I worry about out there. Kind of goes back to that, sometimes the worst enemy is the one between your own ears. So I probably just try to monitor that more than anything else.
I was going to say most of them are probably worried about you at this point,
right?
And it's funny because Parker and I always joke about that, because Parker always said he never looks at anybody either, but he always said there were people who he had the number of and people who had his number, and he always used Jason Couch and Mike Albee. He said, every time I bowl Albee on television, he kicks the shit out of me. But every time I bowl Jason, I kick the shit out of him.
Yeah, Hess was pretty good against me, especially this year. I'm still 0-2 versus Dave Vodka in the best 2 out of 3 match play. He beat me up twice. So yeah, I'm probably going to go to therapy about that one. Probably in the off season as well too. But
You can't be at the level you're at being concerned about other people. It's JJ, you're also breaking up again, buddy. You're breaking up. We're losing you again. Bud. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Hold on a second here.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And dude, what a genius. I mean, the man is, and he's on a different planet.
Seriously. He is.
How about better?
Yes, we're good now.
Okay. All right. But now, like I was saying, I mean, I'm more concerned not about my opponent. I'm more concerned about how well I prepare for that particular day, that particular pattern, that particular squad, that particular lane condition, that particular pair. I'm more concerned about how I prepare for that than I am my opponent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the mentality of a winner.
And it shows.
You're right. It shows. Well, JJ, hey, we really appreciate you working with us. Sorry about all the technical difficulties we're having, but we appreciate you hanging in there and giving us amazing insight. We say it all the time. We learn something new every time on this show, and this is your third or fourth time on, and we're still learning more about the game and about you. And we can't thank you enough for
like I said, thanks for having me on the show, man. I really appreciate you guys, man. And like I said, I really enjoy your show. And let me know if if you need me on again at some point in time.
Hey, go win another Player of the Year. We'll have you on every week.
Yeah, congrats, man. Seriously.
That's the goal. So we'll see.
Hell yeah, brother.
All right, JJ. Congrats on all your success, brother. And we greatly appreciate you. And I'll definitely keep in touch with you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
JJ. Talk soon.
All right. Have a great night, man. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
See you later.
Before we wrap up, I personally have a few things I would like to say.
Sure, JP.
Number one, I'd like to send love to my sister and my new niece, Zoe. I'm officially an uncle as of September 19th.
Congrats.
Strange, but amazing, all in the same breath. That was the moment. And the second one is I had the pleasure of officiating my dear friend's wedding on September 20th. So I had a new niece on September 19th. And then on September 20th, the Stephanie Sheridan is now Mrs. Hodorowski. Congratulations to Stephanie and Eric. What a beautiful, fantastic wedding, dude. 200 plus people at that wedding.
Wow.
Everybody smiling, everybody happy. It's truly a reflection of how wonderful those two people are. And I'm assuming if they could have 500 at that wedding, they would have. And thank you, Steph and Eric, for my man, myth, legend officiant shirt. I should have worn it tonight, but I didn't. So, yeah, and also huge thanks to my good friend Nick D'Ambrosio for offering me the opportunity to work at his marina, which I've been doing now a little bit over a week. So, yeah, I said, if I can get through September, I'm going to be all right. And we made it through with a new niece, a new job, and my best friends are married. And in the span of that, I did manage to start my annual Majestic trek with two 300, a 299, and an 812 all in the last week and a half.
So, you are unconscious right now.
I'm completely unconscious. Not to mention, earlier I actually got home from work at 5:30 and I assed out until 7:40. Thank God I actually set an alarm to wake up for this show. But yeah, I needed to take at least a couple personal seconds there to just wish nothing but love to my niece Zoe and my dear friends Eric and Steph. And
absolutely, we are happy for them and for you. And you were on point tonight, Johnny. I always love your insight, and I love it when you're clear-headed and sober. And you're on fire tonight.
Sometimes you need a friend, Dave, to kick you in the ass a little bit. And I've had my own trials and tribulations time and time again, but let's just say in the midst of the good stuff, my dear friend kicked my ass yesterday. So I wanted to make sure I was on point tonight. So thank you for recognizing it.
That's awesome, brother. And thanks to JJ for coming on again, man. I'm telling you, he is literally like Triple H is a wrestler. They always called him the Cerebral Assassin. That's a great nickname for John Janawicz. He is the Cerebral Assassin. He is so smart when it comes to bowling, and he talked about stuff that I don't even know what the hell he was talking about, but it sounded brilliant to me because he's got a beautiful mind, just like you, John, and so many others we've had on this show. But I think that's what keeps him a step ahead is that he's just so smart. Yeah, Ocho. Yeah, I mean, I'm still impressed with Ocho's biceps. So I'll never.
You were the furthest thing from Dr. Interrupto tonight.
Well, the Yankees were on. He was happy. He was celebrating.
Yankees. I'm a busy guy. Busy
guy. He's on dad duty. I mean, yeah, he's got stuff to do. But
and shout out to Ocho for welcoming me into your home the other night. It was very, 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 very much needed. So,
and on a personal note, John, thanks for
calling
me a couple weeks ago when I was down. I do appreciate you looking out for me, and it does mean a lot to me. I just want to give you a public shout out for that.
I knew that you needed me, and we're always here for each other, just like everybody in this chat that's on this show, all of our faithful followers. Nothing but love here, guys.
I'm the worst. Don't call me. I won't call you.
No. You're good, and we won't bring it up, but you've gone through your stuff too, and we've tried to be there for you as well, because we love you too, Ouch. And next week we haven't announced it yet, but we have Jerome Penksa and Jerry Jr., the founders, the co-owner, the marketing geniuses from Jopo Grips. I can't wait to have these guys on the show. We just had them on Reset and Rise to the Unbreakable with Amanda Moore last night, so check that out on YouTube. But we are going to get into all things Jopo. These guys are so humble. They started in their garage 7 years ago. It's a family-run business, and they're distributed all around the world now. And they have EJ Tackett and Sean Rash and Justin Knowles as their spokespeople. And I'm telling you, these guys are incredible. I can't wait to have them on next week. And, John, I'm telling you, they may actually get your thumb back in the ball. That's how good their thumb slugs are. I'm telling you, you might want you might want to look at it. I'm telling you, people that have had thumb issues in the past and used to go to the hospital for all that, switch to Jopo interchangeable and never look back. I'm just saying, you might want to give it a shot. I'm just saying.
Here's the thing. At this point in my life,
once the thumb comes out of the ball, it should stay out of the ball.
It's really, really easy to put the ball on the press and drill 2 holes and glue in the grips. See you later. I don't want to screw with it, but no.
Well, maybe they can talk you into it.
Entertain the idea. I will enter that. How about that? I'll entertain the idea.
Fair enough. That's the challenge. So, yeah, we'll have Jerry and JP on another JP, Jerry Penksa, Jerry Jr. Next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. We appreciate everybody here in our chat. It's good to be back. We are so glad. Oh, hold on, Jopo changed my whole game. I'm telling you. I'm just saying. And Nate Garcia.
You and your Jopo.
Hashtag long Nate showing up in the show. Johnny doesn't need to put his thumb in the ball when he's the king of plastic.
Thank you, Nate. Very
much.
Fair.
That's fair. All right, y'all. We will see you next week with the owners of Jopo, and we'll be here with the Ocho and sexy Johnny Jr. there.
So. I gotta know what happened to your dog, Shirley Rottweiler. What happened to its tail? It's gone. Where did it go? It's okay. You can tell me.
We'll see you next week. Take care, guys. I got nothing else.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. You can follow the show on Twitter at Straight Up 5 Pod. Follow Johnny Jr. at JPJR07. Follow Rad Rob at Rad Rob Gaming. And follow Dr. Ocho at the Dr. Ocho. Got a question for Johnny? Send your questions to straightup5podcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. Right here on the Rad Rob Radio Network.